Not a member of the subcommittee, Mr. Griffith, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just very appreciative to be here as we discuss this issue, which is very near and dear to my heart. I will say that I appreciated somebody saying that what we need is narrow, thoughtful regulatory reform. I believe that was you, Mr. Homestead, and I am attempting that with my bills and open to suggestions. And, you know, I'm looking in my file here at all kinds of changes and rewrites and so forth, and that's what we're trying to do, is just have a narrow, thoughtful regulatory reform that works right. And it comes about because, as some people say, you know, there's a lot of people out there that want to see this thing work. We all want clean air. Mr. No mentioned his industry. They were out in the hallway. I had to step out right at the beginning just to say hi, because I have probably a couple thousand employees at West Rock at 2 different facilities in my district, and it's important. Likewise, I thought we touched on maybe part of the problem in Ms. Hammond's comments earlier when she was talking about putting on controls at coal-fired power plants, and she said the plants can, the agencies or the power companies can pass, and I hope I get it right, but it's pretty close, can pass the cost on to the ratepayers so it doesn't cost their shareholders anything. Well, that's the problem. It's the ratepayers who get it. And so I thought it was interesting, exactly 2 weeks ago, I received a series of texts from a friend of mine in the district, and it said, just opened my AEP bill. She gives me the numbers, and I calculated 70% higher than what she said her highest bill was last year. She goes on to say, we can handle it, but many are suffering. Do you think we can get it turned around? Big subject on Facebook. Everyone is panicking. So when we do regulations that, you know, maybe it doesn't affect the shareholder, but most of my constituents in Southwest Virginia aren't shareholders. They're ratepayers. And it's easy to sit here in Washington where people have big incomes and say, well, we're just going to pass this on to the ratepayer. But when you're dealing with a lot of folks who have modest means, we can handle it. I can handle it. This lady who wrote me can handle it. But many in my district are suffering, and we have to come up with reasonable reform that makes sense, where we don't open up for pollution, but we do make sense. And I'm going to give you another example. I've got a furniture manufacturer in my district, and I haven't been there in a couple of years now, so maybe they fixed it somehow. But Mr. No mentioned earlier about the confusion on the law. And he had a loop in his conveyor belt that was about half the size of this room, and there was nothing there. It was just a big loop. And he said, I bet you wonder why we have that. And I said, yes, I do. And he said, it's because if we change this was once a part of our paint system, and if we change it, we have to get permission from the EPA in advance. So we built these ramps to go over it, and we just leave it there, and it just runs off here into the middle of nowhere and back. That's what we're trying to fix. It is, you know, that's the one I can understand best. Some of you all can talk about all the different controls and different improvements at the big power plants. But I know that it also deals with things like conveyor belts, and the end result, if we don't get it right, and we haven't, is a 70% increase in the people back home having to pay for their electricity. All right, got that off my chest. I appreciate y'all's patience on that. I do think that we can work together to get this done. Mr. Homestead, you had some concerns that you raised earlier, and I understand in the written testimony that Mr. Walke claims that when you were the head of the EPA Air Office back in 2002, the Bush administration weakened the clean air regulations at issue here to insert loopholes and exemptions that let industry increase harmful air pollutants significantly and evade any modern pollution controls. Would you like to respond?
Thank you. What you just read indicates part of the problem here, and just in terms of the honesty of the debate. So that was a quote from my friend's testimony, who said that the Bush administration weakened them to insert loopholes and exemptions that let industry increase harmful pollution significantly and evade any modern pollution controls. I don't know how anyone can say that. That was 2002. You go on EPA's website, you do a search, and you see where emissions have gone since 2002, and all of these pollutants that we're talking about have been reduced by about 35% since 2002. So we did do some important reforms that I think made the program better. We didn't let industry increase harmful pollution significantly. We tried to do things in a thoughtful way, and that's part of the problem here.
And I appreciate that, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you all today, and appreciate everybody's testimony. And what I appreciate most is the two of you who completely disagree, Mr. Homestead and Mr. Walkie, are sitting side by side, and that's the way it's supposed to be in America. We can disagree, we can have battles of ideas, but we don't have to be completely disagreeable or get so angry that we can't sit at the table together. Thank you for that, and appreciate your testimony. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back this time.